Howdy doody, ladies and gents. It's currently Tuesday. It's July something. Oh, it's the 17th. God, I love that day. And this is Day 9 Daily number 480, where we actually are going to learn to be a better gamer, in stark contrast to yesterday, where we just had a good old grand old time watching the closest games of all time. Oh, so great. That's also extended on to next Monday. Send me more games with the closest game you have ever played, ever. And we'll do them on Fun Day Monday. A little different show that I like a lot is When Cheese Fails by Maximus Black and Nova Starcraft. You can definitely check them out on YouTube. Just look up When Cheese Fails. Sometimes the games aren't super close, but they're still hilarious. Kind of, I think I noticed because apparently one of the games that was submitted yesterday was on that show. But either way, you should watch them because supporting good content is good. What else is going on? In today's Newbie Tuesday, we are going to be doing what I call a Leak Finder Daily. It's a format that I got about halfway through last Newbie Tuesday before I abruptly canceled mid-show, and we're going to try to do another attempt at it. The reason I wanted to do this Leak Finder Newbie Tuesday, actually, let me just say what it is first. In this Leak Finder Newbie Tuesday, what we're going to do is just watch a game from the point of view of a submission that you provided. And we're going to point out everything that's going right and everything that's going wrong. One of my favorite games ever, or my favorite books ever, is it on my shelf? Ah, here it is. Two of my favorite books. Two of my favorite books, of course, I'm sure many of you know The Art of Learning that I talk about all the time by Josh Waitzkin, but also Playing to Win by David Serlin. He was a Street Fighter 4 pro player, or Street Fighter, early Street Fighter player, actually a lot of different Street Fighter players, or Street Fighter version players. God, that sentence was hard. This guy, he plays Street Fighter, all right? Fuck. This is a great book about just competitive gaming in general. He went on to do the balancing for such games as Super Puzzle Fighter HD Remix, which I love so much. And one of the things that David Serlin writes about in the book is the difference between knowing what to do versus knowing what not to do. And oftentimes there's this struggle when you play against a really good player in StarCraft. You learn very quickly that a lot of your strategies don't work. But the problem is, it can be very difficult to find out what does work then, because you just get beaten all the time, and where all the vulnerabilities lie are kind of vague. But if you play against a worse player, those vulnerabilities tend to show themselves, and you can start to see where the weaknesses lie. This is kind of one of the motivations for doing this Leak Finder Daily. It's very easy to watch me do an analysis of a pro on another day of the week and think, oh, that makes total sense why he's doing that. And then you go and play the game yourself and you get stuck at this point where you're like, well, I don't really know what to do. I'm doing this, I don't really know if it's bad, it seems to make sense to me, and it's that sort of vagueness that is difficult to address in a lot of those like pro analysis dailies. So we're going to be looking through this, and even though a lot of the mistakes might be honestly heinous in some circumstances, perhaps subtle in others, the fact that we see a player make them and can point them out will no doubt help many, as the feedback box has implied, with people saying, do Leak Finder dailies, and I'm like, you guys, yes. Before I begin Newbie Tuesday, though, I wanted to announce a new show that I'm going to be doing on Felicia Day's Geek and Sundry channel. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Felicia Day's Google Hangout show called Vaginal Fantasy. It's where she and a bunch of her friends get together and they do they just talk about a romance novel, and they get together and they just giggle about it, talk about the story, the motivations of the characters. But on the show that I'm going to be doing on the channel, it has kind of a mirroring name. It's called Penile Code. And the story behind it is that I'm going to get together with a bunch of my friends and we're going to play through romance-themed games. Oh, that's right. And we're going to, of course, have a delightful time shitting all over the interface, the romantic dialogue, and of course totally trying to get with all the felicities that lie within. So that will be on Geek and Sundry. I believe that's youtube.com/Geek and Sundry. That'll be coming up in a few weeks, actually, But don't you like that name, Penile Code? Isn't that amazing? Oh man, I can't wait. There's a lot of great titles. If there's any guests you'd like to see or games you'd like to see played, send an email to feedback@day9.tv with the tagline or the subject headline Penile Code. Excellent. let's go ahead and hop into this first game. This will be our little introductory game. We have Row Crazy Taxi in the top left. He's the submitter today, and his opponent was Zaz. I'm actually going to go ahead and go to the Row Crazy Taxi point of view. To sum up what ends up happening in this game, Row Crazy Taxi will take and expand, kind of do some stuff, and then get rolled by a bunch of Ling Baneling and just die. One of the most annoying aspects about StarCraft 2 is that anything is fair game at any point. Which of these cups had my coffee in it? I don't know. I put them all to the side. It's so brown. One of the things that's annoying about StarCraft is that someone can attack you at any point in time. So there's no structure to when you're supposed to be a defender or supposed to be an attacker, other than a lot of intense study of timing. And often when a huge attack happens and it doesn't work, it's very easy, or when an attack happens and it works, it's very easy to just have no real clue as to what went wrong. So we're going to try to be pointing some things out along the way that occurred with our good friend Row Crazy Taxi. And by the end, we'll hopefully have a sense of why that one Baneling burst went awry. Now, I'll say this now. I don't care what level of strategy you're at. If you're Bronze, Gold, Master, Grandmaster, GSL, Code S, or perhaps some sort of weird person who's only sat in a room playing single-player games, the most important aspect in any game of StarCraft 2 is third bases. Third bases are the big one. When do third bases happen? Almost everyone's going to be able to get an expansion up, but you want to keep an eye on when your opponent takes a third base. If he's taking a third base, in other words, Row Crazy Taxi, if he saw Zaz taking a third base, that's an indication that there's certainly some kind of big-ass defensive play coming. But if he's not taking it, then there's a sign that there's a big-ass offensive play coming. We see Row Crazy Taxi beginning by essentially doing an early expand on 15. Nothing wrong with this build at all. I will note, however, that if you are doing a command center first, go ahead and plant the command center down here. There's no real reason to put it all the way up here. Unless you're feeling super terrified, I just think it's pretty much universally better to plant it down here. Not a lot of Zerg players will be 6-pooling against Terrans on this map. This is actually a metagame reasoning behind it. And if you lift it and land it, you lose a pretty significant amount of mining time. It is nice to be able to wall off, though. So one thing I'll note, if you are getting 6-pooled, like really aggressively, one of the best techniques to deal with a 6-pool, if you want command center first, is to build one barracks down here and one barracks like over here. Basically build the two barracks very far away from one another, and if you can let one finish and get out a marine or two, you're in good shape. And then what you do is you run the SCVs towards him and just try to avoid taking damage while one of your barracks ends up finishing. That's a nice little technique. But we see Row Crazy Taxi doing his good old fast barracks. He throws down the 2 supply depots. And I would caution you against getting a little too eager with the second supply depot. There's plenty of good builds that involve letting this command center finish, and that acts as the next supply depot. So that's just something to consider. I don't really have the strongest opinion about that. In terms of this placement, a lot of people prefer not placing this bunker here, but instead placing it back here. It's a little easier to run SCVs in and block, and you still defend your ramp and still defend your SCVs. If you do build the bunker here, it's necessary to wall off the rest with supply depots. Excelente. I like saying excellent. Can I just say that? That's like one of my favorite things. I had a chemistry prof named Mr. Geldof at Rockhurst High School, where I went to high school, who was just the most awesome human being in the whole wide world. He'd always ask questions and be really excited. And whenever someone answered, he would say, outstanding. Absolutely wonderful. Outstanding. Outstanding was his word. In fact, someone took a photo of him in his office and he was given thumbs up, and he made t-shirts out of it that just said outstanding on the back with his face like taking up the whole thing. It was awesome. Excellent. But it's important to note that right now Row Crazy Taxi is pretty much playing well. We scouted our opponent. He was early expanding. He had a spawning pool down. We saw no gas. There's still not that much to read into this. It's easy to overread at this point and be like, I've seen no gas, therefore he can't be roach rushing / Baneling busting. He totally can be, quite frankly. We see a second command center go down by Row Crazy Taxi. Great. I like this a lot. Now, what I'll note immediately is that if you are going for a second command center like this, it's really important to throw down. I'm actually going to back up to right when it goes down. We have 400 minerals. Boom, it goes down. It's important to either build your extra barracks immediately or build your 2 gas geysers immediately. Now, in terms of just general StarCraft knowledge, people would intuitively say, well, yeah, you want to build stuff when you have the money for it, right? Let me show you what happens when you kind of get a little bit behind, is that you start getting these crazy ideas in your head. Where, okay, so Row Crazy Taxi is moving forward. Now, because I'll note, I don't want to just say, "Durr, you got to build those refineries earlier because you have the money for it." That's identifying a problem, but not talking about why it's a problem or necessarily how to fix it. The reason this ends up being an issue is that it's very easy to convince yourself that you have enough money to throw down an extra barracks at this point. Or when you miss a supply depot, money starts climbing up quite high. We want to throw these down as early as humanly possible. You actually will have a pretty good amount of money at this point, but what you don't want to do is, it's very easy at a time like this to build something like 3 barracks. We're not seeing Row Crazy Taxi do that, but it's easy to go, oh, I have the money, let me build the barracks. And then when you want to go and build your factory, and you start going double Hellion, you just don't have the money for it. Like right now, as this orbital command's finishing up, we realize now that we have just enough money to build this orbital command and to keep doing productive things at the front of our base. We have supply depots building at the back. This is actually the biggest error that's happened all game long, which is a little weird. But this is the biggest error that's happened so far because these 2 supply depots absolutely desperately need to be here. There's a couple of roach attacks that can happen around now that will kill you. Just, they'll walk up, they'll hit you once, walk by, shoot again, and just go up and start killing all your SCVs. Again, one of the reasons why people like a bunker here. But if you wall off, you're fine. So we've seen our Terran buddy not yet do any scouting. He's going for his Hellion play. He's adding on these barracks. Numbers are pretty freaking important at a time like this, where we kind of have the money for it. But this kind of needs to have some type of purpose to it. I kind of like that we're seeing... I haven't looked too strictly to see if Crazy Taxi's building a lot of SCVs. In the unit counting station, I'd probably claim that it looks like he's a little bit off. Not too off, but just a smidgy bit off. Smidge... Just a smidgy bitch off. But the big thing is that, okay, this Hellion production... I mean, certainly don't queue, but I'm not that torn up about that right now. Hellion production has kind of a clear purpose. If we're building the Hellions, then we're probably going to be going for some sort of space control. We want to be locking him down into his base. Seems great. What is the goal of getting all these barracks early? A lot of people will just say, well, you want to just start making the units really early on, but if you're getting 4 barracks, then you really should be doing something early with 4 barracks. Until your tech is totally complete. Like if you have barracks, factory, starport, and 3 bases, and you just build 4 barracks, that is an acceptable time to say, well, I wanted to be able to spend my money in macro. But early on there always needs to be some purpose. And we're going to start to see some purposelessness to this. And I'll note a very effective way to deal with this, and if you look at these barracks and you say, well, I find no purpose to them, what do I do? The answer often is do the same thing you're doing with this Hellion factory play, but do it faster. Do it much, much faster. So great, we're doing a little control. Trying to kill stuff off. I want to look at these Hellions for a moment. We'll come back to 9 minutes in a second and kind of look at what goes on in the base. What is the big reason you get Hellions early on? Obviously to control space, but it allows you to check up and see if he has a 3rd base or not. This is so frickin' unreal important. I can't tell you. If Crazy Taxi came down here and saw no 3rd base, then yeah, there's probably some sort of layer tech coming, some sort of infestor, some sort of spire. We see here double Zergling upgrades going down. But what if we get here and there is a 3rd base? Oh, well, cool. We can actually probably immediately lift up this command center, land it, and rally our units to here and kill off this destructible rock. You can actually be pretty damn bold if he takes a fairly early third. The worst that'll happen is he'll send roaches, and you have plenty of time to lift your command center and land it back home and defend against the roaches, but the rest of the time it'll be small numbers of Zerglings, maybe some Banelings in there. Only thing that's kind of scary is if he does lots of Zerglings, but even then, he's totally screwed himself if he's gone 3 base and then made a lot of Zerglings. He has no drones. He has no drones. I'm seeing some people talk about lag per usual. If it's lagging, type 0. If it looks great, type 1. Nothing in between. Just 1 or 0. That would be amazing. Just so I know. Alright, we're continuing on with our little friend. With our good friend Rogue Crazy Taxi. In the unit station, I'm still feeling a little bit about our SCV count. And one thing that I'll note right now, this is a very important exercise to do always. We're at 9:44. I'm going to come back to 5 minutes. Right when these two command centers were done. I'm going to go to an unoccupied spot on the map, select my command centers, and I'm going to hit here and make sure that this is always at 2. So you notice missed 1. We're missing 1. Sure, we're floating right there, but there's 2 being made. All right, now we're good. And there's 2 being made. All right, now we're good. Ooh, missing things a little bit. Missing. Oh, we're missing SCVs. We're missing SCVs. Oh, there's the SCVs coming in finally now after a little bit. I'm actually on ×4 speed. So missing an SCV is actually a pretty significant gap of time. We're looking pretty good right now. Do we have our orbital command done yet? No, not quite yet. Oop, kind of missed 1 there. Our orbital command's done. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, SCV production. Ah! All right, you see? You can easily spot when that SCV misproduction occurs. And here's a truth that I think you only really feel when you're at High Masters. If you're making SCVs constantly and probes constantly, and even for Zergies, if you're always hitting those injects and making drones constantly, you don't have a lot of money to do much of anything. You get broke fast. And as a matter of fact, if we come back here to this 8 or this 7-ish minute mark, it's actually just before here, like right around the time that this orbital command finishes. What was going on? It's important to note what's going on. When we're adding on more barracks, that seemed to be the point in time where we just kind of abandoned that production. Right when we were going to do that Hellion production, that's when we kind of abandoned production. When we're doing all the stuff here, this is when our production kind of fell out the window. And now we start to add on some of it. It's very natural whenever there's an important moment in your build for the SCV production to fall off. All you have to do is watch, see exactly when it happens, and say, okay, when I build the Hellions, I better make sure to keep doing SCV production. Slowly over time, it will kind of catch up, and you'll get into a good position where you're like, hey, things are looking pretty good. Just checking up on the lag. Plenty of ones. Plenty of ones. Excellent. Yeah, we want to be able to identify when the SCV production foibles, not just, oh, it's bad. I guess I need to be better. Same thing with this barracks production. It's very easy to have enough money for the barracks, but it's easy to have enough money to build the barracks, but then not to spend the money with the barracks. So I'll actually come back to right before this barracks was finished. Here's another what I call optical illusion in StarCraft 2. We haven't been building out of these 2 barracks, right? But look at our money. It's pretty high. Oh, wow. It's pretty dang high. In fact, we're adding on these things. We're still not producing out of these barracks. Man, that's pretty high. So since it's high, I'll build another barracks. Almost all your money in StarCraft 2 is spent building depots, building units, and building workers. Almost all of it. Not that much money actually goes into the making of buildings. So if your macro slips, it's easy to logically associate, oh, I guess I better build buildings. But the way to combat this is to create numbers in your head. I am going to... Holy cow, that is a loud airplane outside my house. The easiest way to do this is to associate it with numbers. Let's ignore for a moment whether this amount of barracks is right or wrong, or whether getting barracks is a good idea or not, or whether we should have gone starport or not. Let's ignore it. Here's the correct order to go in. You say, This game, I'm going to build 3 barracks and see how it goes. You don't build any more than 3. And then when you expand, maybe you build up to 8 barracks. Make sure you're aware of 3 and 8. And then what you do is you go back and look at the replay. If you had a lot of money and you were not building out of the barracks, then what you should say is, I will stick with 3 and improve my macro. So you still have 3 and 8. And then over time, as your macro gets better, you can start to say, oh wow, 3 is not actually enough. I should actually go 5 barracks first. And then when I expand, I should go 8. Technically, you can over-adjust for this. Like, you can have 3 and a lot of money and say, all right, well, I'm going to start off with 6 barracks, and then when I expand, I'm going to go up to 8. And then try to watch your macro and try to improve your macro, and over time, you'll start to see that you can cut down the barracks. That also works, but the important thing is to have a fixed number of buildings in your frickin' head. Because I'll be honest, an army can evaporate in a second. It can you can do a drop of some Marines and they'll die. You can do a big push and it'll fall apart and you can rebuild another one. But your buildings will always be with you the whole game, right up until the moment when you're basically dying. So in other words, buildings are the most important part of your build, far more than the units that you make out of them. So we see Rogue Crazy Taxi getting these upgrades. That's fine to get these upgrades, but I would say that the overall issue we're seeing is just not enough macro. See the 2 Marines being produced there? Ta-da! 2 Marines building. Not that much happening out of the other ones. We're getting a good amount of money, but this would just plummet down to 0. So here, now our Terran player realizes, holy crap, there's no expansions and I'm at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. This is an excellent time to say, wow, he could be doing some sort of big layer thing. Maybe he's expanded here, or maybe he's expanded here. But generally, there's going to be a Spire coming, Infestors coming, or a bunch of something else coming. He's just not expanding. So we should bolster up on our defense. Maybe throw down a turret, hell, maybe even scan here if we're feeling really unsure of what's up. But this, I think, brings to light why these Marines are kind of an issue. We don't really have a purpose for these Marines. Sure, maybe if we built these Hellions and spotted this expansion, then we could attack with them. These Hellions don't even have that much of a purpose. What are the Hellions really doing? You could say killing off creep tumors, but you have to ask the question, would 4 kill off creep tumors the same way? Basically, yeah. I actually think that I'm sort of asking questions instead of answering, so I'll step into the answering phase. I think that Crazy Taxi should have just gotten 4 to 6 Hellions and then gone straight into Marine tank production, giving this reactor that was on the factory to a barracks. Alternatively, he could build up to 8 or 10 Hellions, get a starport, and be very aggressive with the Hellions and very aggressive with the Banshees. That's kind of the most common play. This surround stings, but I don't think that that is like the big losing moment by any means. I mean, the fact of the matter is that when you're killing stuff with these Hellions, it should be no surprise at this point in time, after 10 minutes, if there's no third base, that my opponent's probably building up a lot of units and I should be a little bit more cautious with those. If he was on 3 base, I'd be a little bit more aggressive. I'll also note one micro trick that I'm seeing here that's very easy to sort of not do. As we're running this way, you have to be aware of where the holes are in space. After this shot, I would have pulled back this way, because the Zerglings are running north, and there's an equally sized hole on... Well, there's about an equally sized hole here and here, but pulling down would have been a lot better. Alright, so that ends up falling. Alright, what is our plan? Per usual, a plan of ours, just in general, if we're getting a 3rd orbital command, a goal of ours should be to send this 3rd orbital command to this base. What would make that safe? Tanks. Another one of the things that happens quite a bit when people go for the early 3rd command center is just no seizing up of the 3rd base. So getting these tanks started earlier, sieging one here, killing off the rock, sieging another one here, maybe one up here. I know I'd probably lean for one here and then like 2 or 3 here. And sieging up this expansion with like a bunker and a bunker would be quite good. And then we'd have our 3rd base up. This attack that's coming up by Rogue Crazy Taxi, he's scanning around, And, I mean, obviously we see this huge-ass army here. And that's kind of a good indicator as to what he's up to. But this hatchery, let's say we didn't see any of these and we just saw this hatchery starting. We shouldn't attack. There's no reason to attack. We should sit, get our upgrades really high, get our third base up. One of the best things to do in general is to take third bases, but especially if we go for a fast third command center, we get that up.
Ready for dust off.
Likewise, we're doing a drop. We're doing 2 drops, but there's no real reason to do a drop. This third base isn't really done yet. We don't have our third base secured. This seems like a drop for the sake of dropping. I mean, sure, this got crushed. But here's what happens if you're dropping and, oops, dropping when your opponent really doesn't even have extra bases. If you're dropping around, almost all of his units are in one location. He's almost certainly going for a huge army. And as a result, this can happen pretty badly. This huge timing occurs. How tragic. What went wrong. I honestly think the biggest things that went wrong were these tanks didn't come early enough. These marine-type plays, getting the barracks up early, didn't really seem to help us. We should have either gotten the tanks earlier, or gotten the upgrades earlier, or moved our third base over earlier, or gotten our factory up earlier. But most importantly of all, when we didn't see these expansions, we probably should have played passively and focused on getting our third base up. So we've gotten a chance to run through a Terran versus Zerg game where, honestly, you're doing little drops, you're doing some things you've seen in the videos, but you don't actually have to drop that much. You really don't. Only if the Zerg is really spread out does dropping become quite good, because he has difficulty defending a lot of spaces at once. And I would call the golden rule of Terran versus Zerg dropping: if you see Mutalisks in one place, drop in another place. That will force his Zerglings to be in the other place. This allows your push to happen. If you push out and there's Zerglings in the middle of the map, it sucks and you can't get in a good spot. But if you've dropped and got his Zerglings out of position with his Mutalisks over here, now your push is in good shape. Notice how dropping always has to do with pushing. If we don't have a push coming, then we probably shouldn't be dropping. It's really not going to be very solid. The biggest thing for, I would say, to Rogue Crazy Taxi is that if you just start macroing and do the same structure of build and don't drop that much and try not to do that much damage with harass, just go for big attacks. The game will just be easy as hell. You'll have a ton of easy games. Doing big muscly pushes at the front are actually happen pretty fast and are very strong. So part 1 went on a little bit longer than desired, but no big deal. We'll go on to part 2, do one more, and then go on to part 3 and do another one more. How wonderful. See you in 2 to 3 minutes.